When WPO 365 synchronizes users from Azure AD to WordPress, it does so in two phases. In the first phase, it will process the results that are returned from the query. So in our example, all the members of this specific group will be processed. And it will do so user by user. First of all, what it will do is try and find the WordPress counterpart for the Azure AD user. And it does so by first of all looking whether it can find a user in WordPress that has ever been tagged with the Azure AD object ID. If it doesn't find a user that has been tagged with the object ID, it will try and find a WordPress user that has the same username or the shorter version of that as the Azure AD login name. If it doesn't find a user, then it will try again and look up a user by its email address. If WPO 365 then does not find a user, it will basically conclude that this user needs to be created in WordPress. But it will only do so if you check the corresponding action to create a user. If it did find a user and you check the box to update the user, then the user will be updated. Let's stop here for one brief moment and let me explain what will be updated. Always updated are a user's first, last and display name, the user's email address. But then there are many other user attributes that WPO 365 can synchronize for you. It can, for example, synchronize the user's profile image from Azure AD to WordPress, like replacing the avatar. It can also import additional user attributes like job title, mobile phone, etc. You can also automatically assign WordPress roles based on the Azure AD groups that the user is a member of. Let me stop here. But before I continue, let me also explain that each user that is created will also be updated. So that means that all the synchronization features that I mentioned before will also immediately be applied to a new WordPress user that has been created during a job of the WPO 365 user synchronization. And this kind of completes this first phase. There's one thing that is important to understand though. Each Azure AD user for which the plugin can find a counterpart in WordPress will always, independent of the options that you check here, be tagged with the Azure AD object ID. And it will be tagged with an ID that specifies this specific run of the user synchronization job. One important thing to note: users are also tagged with their Azure AD object ID whenever they sign in interactively with Microsoft. So, in phase 2, at the end, after all users from Azure AD have been processed, WPO 365 can basically see which WordPress users are users that are maintained by WPO 365, because all of these users will have been tagged by their Azure AD object ID. And it will also be able to see all the users that have been affected by this specific run of the synchronization job. So that means that if there are users that are tagged with their Azure AD object ID, but that are not affected by this current user synchronization job, then it means that these users are no longer returned from your query. And that means that if you check the option to delete users, WPO 365 can continue and do so in phase 2 of the user synchronization. And as you can see, by default, there is an option checked that all users are soft deleted. And this means that all WordPress roles will be removed from that specific user that is to be deleted, plus for the duration that you keep WPO 365 installed, those users can also not sign in anymore. Not with Microsoft, but also not with a local WordPress account. Alternatively, I can uncheck the option to soft delete users, and then I am asked to enter a default user that will become the author of any of the content that a user that will be hard deleted from your WordPress system has created in the past. Let's check the option to soft delete users for now. I have two more options that affect what users that I returned from my query are processed by WPO 365. First of all, there is an option to skip guest users. So if I check this option, WPO 365 will not look for a WordPress counterpart for an Azure AD user that is a guest user. And the second option needs a little bit more explanation. That is about custom domains and to skip the domain check. If I uncheck this option, then WPO 365 will only process users that have a Azure AD username or an email address that ends with a domain that you have added to the custom domain list that you'll find on the plugin's user registration list.